Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how does he know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, there were just thing after thing after thing that I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast, our Wednesday night show. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us is Danny Guru. You're muted.
I don't know how that happened. How you doing, Jen? It's good to see you.
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I'm really excited about tonight's episode.
Yes, so tonight we're going to be diving into Bonnie and Clyde, and if you guys don't know who Bonnie and Clyde are, they are a notorious lovers, Romeo and Juliet, criminal spree people that ended up, it was in the early 1900s, so for Valentine's Day, me and Dan were talking, and they came into my mind, and I was like, I wonder what their human design was to make them do everything that they did. So it'll be interested to dive into their story tonight.
They had a long criminal history. They got together, they made some fire amongst themselves, and together they empowered each other to be world-class bank robbers. And many Hollywood movie has been written about these two, and or a takeoff on them with different characters, but same theme. And Bonnie and Clyde, even what was that?
True Romance came after Bonnie and Clyde. For those of you who've seen that, that was an oldie and a goodie.
Oh man, actually, I don't know if I've seen that. We'll have to catch that. I am. And then even Thelma and Louise, remember that in the maybe 90s or so?
Yes.
They were a takeoff on Bonnie and Clyde. You know, every time you get them both together and they're both bank robbers. That was really, it's all boils back to those two.
Well, they were robbers. He was more robbers in general and murder and all sorts of different kind of crazy things. Like, I think he had his hands in a lot of stuff, and she started going along with it. So I watched a couple of documentaries on them recently. So it's kind of, yeah. And here in Texas too. So.
Well, I bet they're big in Texas. I'm sure Bonnie and Clyde made their way through Texas somewhere along the way.
Born, and that's where most of their criminal stuff happened, and up in Oklahoma.
Gotcha.
Some other parts, but he kept, anytime that things got too hot and they had to separate, you know, he would leave her here. She'd go back to Dallas, and then, you know, he'd go hide out or whatever, but he always came back. They were like inseparable. So.
Yeah. Well, these two together, when you see the electromagnetics that they make, you'll understand why it was, you know, that sense of love at first sight. First of all, they were young enough to where, you know, in our day and age, two people, you know, older don't necessarily fall into love at first sight. You know, we're wise enough and old enough to know that's something you ease into, sort of. But when you're young, you do. And they both died young, essentially.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I don't know how old Bonnie or Clyde was when they died, but they barely made it into, I mean, somewhere in their 30s.
Nope, they were shot down.
Yeah, right. But it's
right outside of Dallas, I believe.
Somewhere in their where they were in their 30s, both of them, I think. By the time they got gunned down, they had made it to 30, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. It was either right at 30 or right before 30.
Right. It was right around that age. So that means both of them were living out their Saturn return, their first Saturn cycle. You know, they hadn't gone through the evolution of having grown up. So literally, they were just like children. They were just like children, right? Experimenting with this, going through the whole thing before you get aloof and go up on the roof and reassess. You know, there's always a reassessment around between 28 and 30. Everybody goes through it. That's genetic. That's that Saturn return.
That's a good point that you bring that out.
Yeah, nobody gets out of it. Everyone goes through the same thing. Same thing with our whatchamacallit, return, not return, yeah, not the return our
Chiron?
Nope. Our halfway point for Uranus, for when Uranus,
Uranus.
Yeah, when it is physically gone half a cycle, that's our halfway point, essentially. So right around there, somewhere about 42 years old, it happens again. Somewhere between 40 and 42, it basically happens again, and suddenly everyone calls that a midlife crisis of some sort. And it's not a crisis; it's a midlife, but it's not a crisis.
Yep, that would make sense.
Yep. So these two moments, these two things, when children become really adults going into 30, and then when they realize, oh my God, this ain't all it's cracked up to be in their 40s, that, you know, these 2 points in time. So they barely made it to 30. And that means they were just wild swinging kids as it relates to their temperament, you know, their maturity. And because they had all the energy in the world, Jennifer, because they could do, you know, they could do whatever they wanted, essentially. You know, when you're that age, it's hard to wear out.
Well, and, you know, back then they didn't have the technology that the police force has nowadays, and, you know, all sorts of different things. I mean, I was watching one documentary where he was lying about his age when he got arrested and all this other stuff. And you know, you can't do that now because everything's on the computer and they pull the record up and everything like that, and fingerprints and forensics. And but it's people like these are the reasons why we have some of the technology that we have today. So before we do dive into tonight's show, we have a small commercial and announcement. Me and Dan have not been talking about much, but it is coming up. We're going to be at the UFO Expo in Roswell. So if you guys can make it down there, I'll wait to play the commercial at the end. But if you want to check us out, we'd love to see you in person. If you live near there, if you want to get away, the date of that is going to be March 10th through the 12th, I believe is what it is. Yes. So we would love to see you in person. We're going to be down there. We're going to be one of the vendors. It's
going to be really good. I sort of can't wait to get there. Yep.
I'm excited. It's going to be perfect weather too. It's the perfect time. So, and it's spring break. So there's no excuse of, you know, not knowing what to do.
I can't imagine what that town's going to be like.
Yes.
Yeah. I hope we have a nice chariot reserved, Jennifer.
Yes.
Oh.
We do. All right.
Take a look at these two.
Yes. And guys, you know the drill. Make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the show.
Do we know what number this is? Because we're over a year now.
Not on this one. I started numbering the Sunday shows, so we are.
Well, whatever. Yeah. We've been at it over a year, guys.
We have.
It's a little after our anniversary somewhere, right? We're within a week or a couple of weeks of it.
Yes.
So, Clyde, first things first, manifester. So, he was designed to initiate all these bank robberies. My guess is he initiated everything. Would be my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Except when Bonnie finally mastered a system and finished her investigation, she became in part the brains of the outfit. In part.
Well, she did. They did ask her to do a lot of she smuggled in guns when they were in prison. She, you know, acted like a certain individual. She started to play the part. So
yeah, well, when we get to her chart, you'll see she's designed to investigate and know stuff. And busy mind. But so this man is filled with love and light. I mean, he is, other than the fact that he was a stone cold killer, but they didn't actually, I don't know how many people they killed, but it wasn't their first line of defense. They didn't go in and just shoot the place up. They robbed places, but in doing so, he's also a murderer.
No, he was killer.
Was he? I thought he mostly spared.
He started at a very young age.
Oh, look at that. Well, he's got whatever it takes to be that. I mean, as a manifester, look at this definition. So he's emotional. That means
I saw that.
Right away, you know, this is something. When you're an emotional manifester, that can be a powerful place. So every time he got angry, then somebody died.
Yeah, he was dirt poor, so I'm pretty sure there was a lot of anger that stemmed from that, and he started robbing because he had the desire to be rich. He didn't like the life that the rich people were living in the city, you know, having all the fancy things. So,
and he would be one to notice that. So he's got this channel of materialism, this voice for the tribe, 2145. And so he would have been around those people, and he couldn't be in control of anything, yet he's a design to control the surroundings, to control how it's all going to operate. He's designed to do that. He doesn't try to have control. He is control. Anyone with this channel, they are control. Doesn't mean they're the right control. Doesn't mean they can control you or I. It's just their way is to find the right niche where their control of things is welcome. You know, I mean, my mom controlled the house. I remember being a child and I welcomed that, you know.
Yeah.
Right. So it's supposed to be a good thing. However, in angry outbursts, this would come out as an entitlement, and I can chop your head off, because that's what tribal rulers can do. And this was back in the early 1900s. So think about our 7-centered vehicle and how many generations it had been through by then. Not many. 4, 3, 4. So the old 7-centered way is alive and well in this time. And so the conditioning would be that he had to generate a lot of wealth, that he had to be somebody. He had to be a star. He had to, like you said, be wealthy, be rich. It was always one of the more important things to him, because this channel of materialism is designed to gather resources. 45 is gathering people together. We did it last week. Beneficial forces together for the sake of rulership. And 21, the hunter, is the controller. 21 is a warrior of sorts. They're the one that literally, you know, keeps the hunting party together, charges into battle with their troops. 21 goes into battle with their troops. 45 stands up high and watches their troops.
Yes.
Yeah, just like a king would do. And then he's got this 3740. Now he's conscious of all of this, so none of this stuff is a surprise to him. You know, it doesn't come out of a tunnel where he can get frustrated and angry at stuff that shows up out of nowhere as easily, because he's aware of these two definitions of black line.
Right.
So 3740, this channel of community, this continuity between keeping a tribe together and keeping everyone fed and making sure the resources are evenly distributed to where it's fair, and where everyone gets to eat. It's wicked supportive. Bargains were wicked important. So when no one would make bargains with him, when people didn't keep the deal, when Mr. Rich Man walked by and said, "Hey kid, I'll get you next time," and then he doesn't get him next time, well, that breaks the deal. And now rich guy might have a target on his back for a few weeks later when Clyde decides to pay him a visit and shoot him dead. So Bonnie was undoubtedly well aware of this, and she fell right into the bargain. Other things about Clyde. The reason I said he's just a little loving vessel of light to himself, he is. So I have no doubt he was very protective over some things that he would not just shoot dead. There's no question.
His family, apparently he absolutely loved his mom and adored her.
Yeah, so that's this is an ego-driven tribal thing, what you just said. I mean, and that can be driven under anything. I mean, I love my mom and so forth, but he did so with a special commitment. This channel makes commitments, this 3740. It's literally about committing to things, and doing the work needed for that commitment to work out. So This is just a wicked, powerful ego being with an emotional authority and a manifestor frame. Now, his personality, Sun Earth, 25 and 46. The reason I say he's just sort of a little vessel and a little beacon of light to himself is because a few days earlier, this incarnation cross was the vessel of love. So we know that, and so he's half of the vessel of love, the 25 and the 46. What do we know about the vessel? It's cool. I could justify killing this guy. He's a dick. We'll be fine. So since you brought up that he was a killer, I would have assumed him not necessarily an easy killer, like he killed it, when robbing a bank, things go south, people die. I get that part, but I wouldn't have thought that he was easy to pull the trigger on just people in general, but
I think it was started when he was young, and then he may have just gotten desensitized to it.
Right. Well, and in a seven-centered world, he would have learned many tricks, and not to mention, think of how many times he was agitated and angry because he didn't know that he's not a generator.
Yeah.
Right. And so, what happens when you get too tired, but you keep going? Well, it's easy to get aggravated and
yes,
and lose your cool. But
yeah.
while he had his cool, the vessel part of his cool was just detached. Hey, I love being in my body. That's great. Gate 46. I love it. So I love this too. He loved being in the moment. It was he's driven to be in the moment. That's what 46 demands. 46 demands that you experience the experience of the love of yourself in that body in that moment. I bet you he loved the grip of his guns, of his machine guns, of his hands on the wheel of his getaway car, and
yes,
handling the cash, grabbing the stuff. I bet you he even liked scaring people to make sure they would stay tame when he went in to rob a bank.
Yes, all of the above. Like he had an assault rifle. He was a really good getaway driver at the time. Even, the cars would run out of gas. He'd be able to get another one, hot wire, like all of that. Yes, all of the above.
Yeah. So he's wicked strategic about everything he does. Most of his arrows point to the left.
Yeah, so I see that. I noticed that.
And he had eyes in the back of his head. So he had a certain confidence, ego-driven confidence about the fact that he had this amazing peripheral vision that seemed to give him extra senses that one might call eyes in the back of his head. That's what happens when you have this variable. This variable says there's one right-facing arrow, and it's the view, the arrow of how he views the world. And since it's facing to the right, that's a peripheral view. So it takes in everything. So suddenly in the moment, at moment to moment, this man's ego will force the power into his body to act and react as if he has eyes in the back of his head. That's what that peripheral view does. It senses everything. So people thought him a ghost. People thought of him as, oh my God, he's here, he's gone. Where did he go? Because he had everything. He could sort of see everything. If he allowed it. So there were plenty of times when he wasn't seeing so well, like when he got gunned down. You didn't see that coming.
No, I think they did see that coming.
Oh, what? They were getting chased and they got caught?
Uh-huh.
Well, whatever the kernel of the precipice of that moment was when he realized from when he wasn't being chased to a second later, it's like, oh, darn, we're being chased. He didn't see that coming. Something he missed along the way, and it cost him his life. But there would have been other times that he missed things, but this variable brings a sense of sort of eyes in the back of your head that you strategically have access to. That's why it feels like eyes in back. A lot of people have a right-facing view arrow in their body graph. Doesn't quite give him the same thing. He's got all these strategic arrows, so as soon as that view came in, he could strategically do something about it. And he's a manifester designed to do something about it. So that's why I say people thought of this man as in a way, a ghost, almost uncatchable. They laid traps for him everywhere. He escaped every other time. I imagine he has had, 100 escapes before they finally got him.
Yeah.
Many, I don't know if it was 100, but it was a lot. But when I go over to the person out to the design size, what's unconscious in him? That second line says, I'm a recluse. Don't try to influence me. I'm going to choose my own behavior. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to sidestep you.
And he's a manifester.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a natural at things. Oh, I suddenly am a natural. That's what that second line does. It suddenly has a knack for things. It also is constantly sending out a projection field that he might be able to do something really cool. And that's exactly that's what picked up Bonnie. Bonnie felt that projection from him. He may have done the initiating, but he saw her as this attractive, wonderful thing. And I'll tell you why in a second. So what else about Bonnie? He's got that ego gate 26 coming out. So he's got most of the gates of the ego. This very ego being, even though he had this emotional authority. So that was the trickster. So he could basically justify anything. He could justify anything. And he did.
Yes, he did.
Two things on his solar plex center. He's got a gate 36 and a gate 30. Now we've been over these. The 36 brings crisis. So every time he was angry, it was because there was some form of emotional crisis over the experience he hadn't had, like being rich. That was a crisis to him the whole time until he was.
Yes. Okay. That does make sense.
Yep. The inexperience of being rich, having to watch other people do well and have that wonderful life that he couldn't have, that would have driven fire into his belly. Because gate 30 unconsciously would have been delivering him the clinging fire that clung to that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So he had this feeling, and then unconsciously in his body, outside of his control, you know, he had this unresolved feeling that he couldn't get until he started robbing banks. And so he clung to the feeling of doing that. It was the clinging fire is the gate of feelings. And it's in a defined center. So there he is, you know, with a feeling that he wants to be rich, and suddenly everything starts to point to that feeling. His whole, you know, growing up, he's playing ball. I'd have a better ball if I had money. You know what I mean? He's doing this. We'd be able to go here if we had money. So he's constantly holding on to this nagging feeling because it represents a crisis that he never basically got over until he finally robbed a bunch of banks, and then everything else was a crisis.
Yeah.
You know, so one didn't necessarily lead him down the best path for a good life, but he makes for a good story. That's for sure. Then you go over to the 58 and the 52 on the design side. So we were talking about line 2. Oh, I have to read this because this came out of him unconsciously. He had no choice. It just was showing up. That's 58 line 2. So first of all, it's in an open center, so it would show up and then it would go away. It would show up and it would go away. Both of these gates are in an open center.
And the root too.
Yeah, so they're intermittent. So he would feel lost at times and disappointed, but still needing what they're doing. It's not like these gates aren't in his body graph. He just didn't always have a way to have them activated and turned on. They're in an open center. 58, joyous, the joyous vitality, where stimulation is the key to life and joy. Stimulation. Line 2, perversion. No polarity, no exaltation, no detriment. One line. The genius for perverse stimulation that afflicts oneself and others by promoting degeneracy and reducing joy to indulgence and decadence, the energy which fuels the drive for perverse stimulation. I mean, so that's in English. If I go try and boil that down behaviorally speaking, what that says in a nine-centered being, that's not that there's no exaltation to that. It's that whatever there is out there, all the 58 twos are going to try and pervert that, or they're going to view various ways in which should it be perverted. Lots of things need to be perverted, you know, literally. I say we both corrupt and pervert the current justice system. It's currently perverted. I would like to go in and pervert it differently. You know, if you just break the word out, to pervert something is to, now we call it a pervert today because so many things come out sexually. He was emotional, so there's always a sexual charge inside of that emotional being. He's a manifester, which means he's open.
You know, you say that, but I have an emotional, and every time you say the sexual charge, I don't resonate with that. I think that comes more from the solar plexus. I mean, not the sacral.
Well, you have an open sacral.
Yeah,
So,
I know.
right. So you need to be conditioned by others. When someone is conditioning you, suddenly you have a sexual charge. Condition you when there's a sacral in your aura.
Maybe I got to think on that. You say
Yeah.
the solar plexus a lot, but I don't
Well,
associate with
it's
that
out
as
there in the
much.
world, Jennifer. The one thing that would be different with you is the fact that the one thing that defines your solar plex center. See, what defines is not what you have. What you have requires grace, listening, and caution.
Mm-hmm.
So when as you are awake to your nature, caution shows up. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess that doesn't always equal, that you're a flu. This doesn't mean people are a floozy. It just means that there's juice flying around in there. There's plenty of thought going on.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, on the other hand, yes, we'll have to do a separate show on that.
Yeah. We'll talk, because not everyone's going to experience this the same, but other people get into his aura and they amplify that. He starts amplifying that sacral energy, and next thing you know, it'll show up, and he's clinging to that feeling with a sustained energy. And he's got one gate off of his off of that sacral center, gate number 34, and it's unconscious. And what does gate 34 say? Gate 34 says, I am the power. It's just the gate of raw power. And now that I think of it, it's asexual, by the way. That sacral power, it's the one gate of the sacral that is strictly asexual. It's only there for survival. Only there for survival. So it's not that it is incapable of having sex, it's that it's asexual. It's not what?
And well, he pretty much had to live on survival.
Right. And this is how to empower survival. But the sadness that comes in from this, that would have showed up all the times he saw the rich people, was, I have all this power, but I can't do anything with it. So one day he bursted out in a sacral flame of fire and killed some people, and suddenly he had the power. So if I were going to pick one gate that drove the ascent into what he got, it would have been the waffling back and forth in an emotional wave regarding the melancholy of gates 25 and gates 34. Gates 25 and 34, they're both individual. 25 gets sad because it feels insignificant, and gate 34 gets sad because it can't place its power. It can't seem to do anything. He knows he's got the power and the will to do stuff, but it just doesn't. He just can't seem to get it done.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And 52, line 2. So 58, perversion. So it's about literally finding finding stimulation that others will find perverse. And listen, one person's perverseness is another person's difference. So
Right.
say what a thing is. But when we get into society, of course, there are societal norms. We all live by them. Nobody wants to see anyone killing anybody. So I say being a murderer is flipping perverse. So it's not that I'm not idolizing Clyde Barrow. You know what I mean? He did all these things. However, when I get to the 52, to his earth, where that grounding came in, it's the pause that is initiated to benefit others, the pressure to restrain energy for the benefit of others, or the pressure to selfishly restrain energy at the expense of others. So when he was funny, he was the exaltation of that. When he was out killing somebody, he was the detriment of that. He waffled between these two lines a lot, these two different expressions of the same genetic construct in humanity that says, hey, we have to pause to help, and or pause to freaking keep it to ourselves. So all in an open center. So basically, most of his sunshine, all of his sunshine and his incarnation are all in open centers. So open G center, lost, looking for love and direction. He didn't know. I'll lash out, thinking about too many things and having all these concepts that he couldn't be sure about, and all the sacral energy that wasn't his that he kept amplifying, and all this pressure on his root with all those gates pointing at it and going off of it. 5 gates on the root. It's technically the busiest center in his body graph, and there's no definition to it. And so under extreme pressure to hurry, he was always in a hurry. So now I'd like to hurry to be rich. I better kill somebody. I feel insignificant, and that made me feel significant, and I used my power. I can do something with this. My ego will be sad. I get my ego
Yeah.
reward.
He gets his ego reward.
My perverse ego reward is the thing. This man had a perversion. So, and look at the cross he's on. He's designed to heal people. He's designed to heal. Well, I don't know what he did for healing in his life, but the thing is, we don't know about his personal life. We don't know for whom he loved. How did he heal them? We don't know. In what ways was he loving and healing? Because it's in him. It's in him to logically identify with something like that. But we only know the Hollywood version of him and the outward version because they're Bonnie and Clyde. You know, that trumps everything. So move over to, let's see how these two connect. Any questions about Clyde, Mr. Manifestor, strategic boy who could do anything and was immune from the forces because he always lived with a certain serendipity? 46 brings serendipity. Gate 46, by the way.
No.
Oh, God, he loved her. He just wanted her. He kissed her up and down. So
this is Bonnie, everybody, and then I have their charts together.
Yeah, well, let's go to their charts together for a second. Let's stay here for real quick. They hook up in 5 separate places. So, and by the way, they make all 9 centers. So when they got together, they became 9-0, no place to go. They became 9-0, locked together. And when you pull them apart, you could do that. So his ego would find the commitment needed to get out of Dodge so she could be safe. That is a tribal ego thing to do for him. You know, with all that tribal business. And look, she's open emotionally, open ego. He fills in those 2 spots. That was wildly attractive to her. He was just this powerful man, you know, and she thought he was so sexy. She thought, and then he was a committing man. He was willing. That his channel of community, 3740, is the marriage bargain. It starts in 1949, but it's very much part of it. So, you know, I love you became a bargain. I have no doubt that if she ran off, he would have hunted her down and killed her. I don't say.
Well, there was a period where he was in jail and she kind of stopped writing. The letters started getting few and then there were none. And as soon as he got out, the first place he went was to go find her.
Right. I wonder what happened after that.
Well, she always came back to him. But a lot of it was like every time that he would get locked up or whatever, she would go move back in with her mom. And her mom didn't not like him at all. So I'm pretty sure there was some influencing going on in that direction as well. But they always ended up back together. It was like glue.
As soon as she was anywhere near him, she would have been, let's keep in mind something. Bonnie, criminal, clearly, after a while, but somewhere along the way, personally, in those dark moments of our soul where we're living that moment out, she made decisions she didn't want to make out of fear. She feared him for good reason. Nobody is not afraid of a manifestor that's willing to use their power in such a way. It's a scary thing. You know, it can literally make people like, holy, you know, they fear him. Don't forget, manifestors ruled the world up until, I mean, fully. They still do, by the way, in many, many ways. So anyways, let's look where they hook up. So together they have an open head center until you put them together. And then look, she's got the 61 to his 24 and he's got the 64 to her 47. Boom. Total definition. Connected to the throat. And now with that connection to the throat, she's got access to all of his manifesting energy. All of it. Because that connection to the throat is immediately to his ego and to his solar plex center. When she was around him, she felt strong. She felt powerful.
And they got a lot of throat activity going on when they connect.
Yeah, they got a lot, and they've got some similarities too. Now, look at the very bottom, the root center. So the root center is his gate 58 connects to her gate 18, and his gate 54 off the bottom left of that root center connects to her 32.
Yep.
That 5432 becomes an instinctually aware, tribal, supportive mechanism designed to bring in material, designed to escape failure. It's a design of being driven with an instinctual awareness that suddenly is afraid of failure, so it takes measures to not fail. My guess is they were pretty careful most of the time once they got together. I don't know if that's true, but it would stand to reason. And I guess part of the reason I'm bringing this up is because when you look at his incarnation cross, they're all in open centers. He fell in love with this girl so hardcore because as soon as she came into his life, every single one of his incarnation gates suddenly was lit up. She let his sunshine out, literally. And he let her sunshine out. Look at her.
She's starting.
All 4 of her gates are in an open center as well. The 18, almost all of them. Three of the 4 are open. So the 18 is in the open on her, is in the open, right there, spleen. And then 17 is in a defined ajna.
Right, defined ajna,
But the
but 39 and
the fighter, the struggler, and look at her cross, the cross of upheaval. That would have been terribly, terribly attractive to him. Because on this cross of upheavals, I flirt with you. I stopped flirting with you. Oh, I'm going to flirt with you some more. Oh, I'm not sure, maybe a little less. We don't know how that all played out other than she's wildly attractive to him. So they made that one. And then the one that he was so sad about when he was young, gate 34, look, she's got a gate 20 coming off the throat. That's the manifesting generator channel, the archetype. It's a manifesting channel. I mean, it's generative. So when you're a generator, it's still a manifesting generator. But to him, that energy was just like, oh, now I'm a double manifester with power and sustaining sacral juice to I can conquer anything.
Yeah, it's that.
She was an underdog pill to him. If you've ever heard that reference, underdog.
No, I haven't.
He's a little cartoon where every time he got down, he would run into a telephone booth and turn into underdog. And
oh, okay, I know the cartoon.
He had a ring with his underdog pill on it, and whenever he got too weak because they beat him down too hard and he needed some extra juice, he would open his thing and take his underdog pill. I'm sure that was some actually pharmaceutically run advertisement to get it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there's some subliminal messaging
on it. Yeah, pill, whatever. My God, we've been being programmed a long time.
Very long, forever.
Yep. So she gave him all of this juice, and he just absolutely adored that. And because she's got this 5th line for a personality, that's just sheer seductiveness. And she would challenge him. Gate 18 and 17 are great gates of challenging. They challenge things. They challenge the opinion. They challenge the notion. They challenge the pattern. They challenge the law. They challenge authority. So he came swooping in like Don Juan. I'm the manifester. I'm doing. Hey, baby, you like me? She may have really liked him at first, but even if it was love at first sight, there was a moment that she made him work for it. And she challenged him. And in their relationship, she would challenge what they were doing. That would have been the source of where they would have big blowouts. Don't forget, both of these people are when they come together, they totally light up the purpose of the being, the incarnation cross, this thing that is our archetype, what we're here to live out. We're all here to live out these crosses. And neither one of them could live out their cross quite, because they required someone else to ignite it, to turn it on, to quote, let their sun shine out. If you have a personality or a design sun gate and it's in an open center, that sunshine, that driving energy coming in on you, it's locked in a closet without the light. It's sitting there waiting for someone to open the door. Here, I have the gate on the other side, sweetie. Come on out. And they let my sunshine out. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. These songs were written about phenomena just like this.
Absolutely.
They were each other's sunshine. literally,
Yes.
because they both filled it in. Go over to her chart for a moment. I can just tell by looking at her, he totally fell in love with her. He was like, I got to have this girl. As soon as he was in her aura, because all of these things. Now, she's not playing flirtsy with him, right? She's got that first line. That first line's investigating. You know, it may play flirty pretty quick. And she's got that practical fifth line, that thing that's always getting projected upon. So every man hits on her somewhere along the way. You know what I'm saying? They all were like, ooh, what do you got? What's that? Hey, Bonnie, blah, blah, blah. So she did her share of shutting people down. There's no question. But still, she's still open. Look at her arrow.
Got that gate of caution too.
Yep. And
That's 6.
in a defined, in
Undefined.
Yeah. The friction is gate 6. It's friction. It's friction to intimacy. So suddenly she thinks she wants intimacy. And then suddenly Clyde comes in, opens up her sunshine so her sun can shine out and she can actually, feel something. And out came her friction and her sensitivity to what intimacy will be right. She made Clyde be good to get at her. I don't know if that took a day or an evening or a week. I don't know how long that took, but he didn't walk in and just swoop her. It would be my guess. He had to say some stuff, and she had some stuff to say back because she's got all this individual definition. Individual definition is by definition moody. Clyde doesn't have any individual definition. He's got strictly tribal definition.
Yeah.
Let me get up close. Let me smell you. Let me see if we want to support each other. Let me see if we want to make a bargain. And by the way, part of that bargain is sex. Hey, I bring home all the bread and I do all this stuff and I risk my life. And, there's a sexual contract in all of this. And you can't just shut me off, in other words. That's sort of implied. It's what the church and the tribe came up with to basically, they came up with that thinking that was their idea, and it wasn't. The tribes across the world and all the churches said, what do we do about the sexuality? Everyone's a horny little bastard. Basically, the church and the tribes and the leaders, everyone knows that. So how do we do that? Well, the institution of marriage built in all the sex you could want, not necessarily all of it, but regular, right? So regular sexual contact and something that's going to tie you together. That sexual contact is going to make some children. So boom, lock you into that bond, that familial bond that his tribal definition would never want to let go of. If anyone could let go of a relationship, it was her.
She was devastated, I think, the first time that he got locked up. And that may be because on the psychological level, the way he was making her feel good.
Oh, absolutely. They made each other feel good. And I'm not saying that wouldn't, but when she got a stick up her butt about something, she could hold to that because that individual definition is not in the mood. I'm not doing it. I don't like it. Didn't mean she could withstand that ego willpower that would be so forceful, or that emotional wave that would make her feel terribly uncomfortable and she would try to avoid certain things. But the thing is, they were rotten without each other because as soon as they got together, the root and the spleen were defined. So
yeah, that spleen.
Yeah. So what does that say? That says, hi, the pressure went away. The pressure became manageable and I feel good. I feel safe, doubly safe. We're defined twice here. I feel safe, I feel good, and the pressure changed. I don't feel under the same pressure with you, Bonnie. And Bonnie's like, Clyde, I don't feel under the same pressure with you, and boom. Right? And so that's a thing. What did he love about this woman? And what did this woman provide? Bonnie, she didn't know she had it. It's unconscious. Her generator definition, 14.2. This is the incredible sustaining power of the sacral to drive the work required to push a direction towards something that's pretty, something that brings beauty, something that puts your love in a decent direction. That's what this channel does. It's Tantra. This is a Tantric channel. These three channels between the solar plex, between the sacral and the G center are the three human tantric channels. The Tantra here says, let's get it over with. Let's get to it. That's what the Tantra here says. It's not only that, but it is, when engaged in its sexual discourse, suddenly it does so quickly, meaning it's like it's right in or it's right out. Now she has that gate 6, which might have left her in the mood or not in the mood, and cautious about all of that. However, that's what this tantra does, and that's incredibly seductive to the other because it's a tantric energy.
Right.
So, and what does it do? It's wherever you see this channel in a family, that family generally does okay. Wherever you see this channel in a workforce, in a workplace, that workplace generally has the material resources needed, because 14 brings great abundance of an energy to basically sustain the work needed to basically drive a direction. And gate 2 says, I have the direction. I am the home of the magnetic monopole. Pour your energy into me, and our direction will be towards love and beauty. Period. So he got with her, and suddenly she drove him towards love and beauty. And he would never stop loving her with this definition, ever. They're so addictive to him because this definition let his power out. He had one sacral gate. So when you have one gate on an open center, it becomes the most important thing ever. It becomes the most important thing. It's just so important when you have a gate on an open center.
She would, help giving him love and direction.
Absolutely. So exactly. So she filled that in. And then suddenly it became easy for them both to look at each other and say, you are my sunshine. Because they were just literally keynoting the sun earth of their body graph.
Yeah. Wow.
I have no doubt that song is simply a keynote of an open G center and hanging gates in open centers that are an incarnation cross. So her all of her arrows point to the right.
Yes, they do.
So she's just wide open to the forces.
Yeah.
So Clyde couldn't say anything that she didn't suddenly have a response for.
Yeah.
He loved that, except when it challenged him. Because you could just look in her face. Bitch challenges things, right? You see it? And she's dressed like a modern woman. Look at that turtleneck, cut tight. There's no,
Yeah, her family didn't have like a lot of money, but she had a more of the glamorous lifestyle that she brought in.
About what you would have. Well, that's what you would expect out of a fifth line that's in gate 18.
I was just going to say she's a 5-1. I just put that two together.
So she puts that out there and wants to be attractive. Attractiveness becomes something that's important to her. Practicalness becomes important to me. It's got to be practical, Clyde. What you going to give me? And Clyde would take that gate 40 of his and use that love language of his and say, honey, look, I'm working. Look at me work. Let's work. I'll work at this, period. And she has none of the, she has not one of the love gates of our material love way. She's got none of the gates of the vessel of love. And the other ones would be 44, 40, 55, 28. What she's got is all the gates pointing at it. She's got gates pointing at these love gates. But anyways, she's also got a gate 27 coming off of her sacral. So that means that whatever it is she's going to move in that direction, if she doesn't care deeply about it, if she doesn't want to nurture it, then it's never going to work out for her. It's something that, so he offended her, at those times of his manifestor anger, when that would come out and she didn't know what that was. And he didn't know what it was, by the way, either. It's not like either one of them were aware. Oh, it's just mechanic that's happening. Don't sweat it. That's not what they said, I'm sure. When that energy would come out, she didn't want to care for that. And she would withdraw her nurture of him. She nurtured him. I'm not saying she doted on him necessarily, but when she was in his aura, he felt nurtured. So you put that together, the pressure left. The pressure subsided. I feel safe. My love is in a direction. You guys both let each other's sunshine out. We're 9-0. We fill each other in everywhere. You complete me is how that reads. You complete me in the now because she's so individual. And you add all that up and these people just become irresistible to each other. Absolutely irresistible. exciting too. Don't forget that fifth line is the heretic and the general. So one day she woke up and she was like, why not rob banks? Since we're going to do it, and she's got all that definition between the ajna and the throat center, she's like, let me plan some of this stuff out. Let's make it logical, Clyde. I can solve some mysteries. I have some great insights. And by the way, I'm a knower. I got the channel of structuring 4323. So my voice sounds like I know all the time. So if you don't like that, then you don't like me. You know, not that she would have had those words, but when she would get stubborn, and there was not a dang thing he could do about it except get angrier and angrier. That's why I'm trying to drive at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which probably drew, passion in the long run.
Absolutely, dude. This drove passion. She's like, that. I love her so much. She's so mad. Then, and then he melts. That's one thing. So the manifestor, the emotional manifestor, comes in contact with the generative life force of a generator. If there's going to be a melting, it's going to melt like icebergs at the equator. It just melts away because it's the one thing that all the non-generator types, they want that generative life force pulsing through them. It feels good. It's like helps them sustain. And she's got all the throat action. So she had an opinion for everything. She had an opinion, but she was practical. Her fifth line didn't always say it.
Yeah.
She didn't always say, no, what is it? What is it? What is it, sweetie? He'd say, She did her share of not saying. Now, she is a generator, so many, many times more so in that openness of hers, she would have literally just responded.
Yeah.
But if he had an emotional wave going on, he always had one, but when that wave turned sour in any way, she would avoid it. I'm not saying you're just going to yell at me. She became instinctively aware when he was just going to start yelling. She was instinctively aware of that. So these two guys did all this stuff together, and her sun and earth, let's look at her cross. Left angle cross of upheaval. I love that. So
I don't think we've ever done that one.
What is upheaval here to do? Upheaval is here to bring the fight, which originally starts out as the fighter, which is the 39 and the 38. This was the cross of service before. So a few days earlier, this was the cross of service, and then it moved into, which, by the way, dovetails off of his this incarnation cross is moving into the cross that he just moved out of.
Okay.
Cosmically speaking. So they share two gates that are in an incarnation, that are in each other's that are in an incarnation cross.
Okay.
They dovetail off of them. And so that whole thing about their purpose and what they're here to do, and the whole, arc
kind of matches.
It's just, it lines up in this sort of cosmic way. But that 3931 in her was a fighter. Now, she was investigating what's worth fighting for, but as soon as that root was turned on in her, she had a fight. She came out swinging. I'll do it this way. She would provoke him. She would argue with him. She would challenge him. He, half the time he loved that. Half the time he hated it. And that's a recipe for a great marriage, frankly, in a lot of ways. But he always came back to loving that. I'm certain he died in love with her. I'm certain of it. And she too, but she's more self-concerned in a way. When you're a generator, your question is, who am I? Who am I in all of this?
Who am I?
When you have individual definition, it's extra who am I, because it's moody, it's melancholic, it's attempting to figure its own self out. It's waiting to be mutative. It's unique. It's unique is what it is, and its uniqueness comes in a pulse. So here she's got this busy mind, this ajna straight to her throat. So she's got plenty of stuff to say, loads of activations. She can say it right in the now. She always had this memory for things, and she had this 45 like he does. So she felt entitled to sort of try and figure stuff out for herself. So they shared that in common. And then he compromised the crap out of her because he was in control of what they would do. So she had to surrender to that many times, and that plenty often times was the source of her deep, I don't like it anymore. Basically, for the generator, just means time after time when he would piss her off too much, right? Too much violence, too much anger, too much aggression, just showing up out of the blue. She would just bounce. She would literally just be like, I don't like it. But sooner or later, you collect enough generative responses that are saying, Sooner or later, that generator is going to bust out of that. Now, it's not going to be pretty if they take too long at it, right? It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
Because, it's ugly. They lose the house. Everyone's divorced. No one's happy. It's all sucks. But you ask them a year later when they're all sober about it all and can speak intelligently, and you say, hey, in the first 3 weeks of your relationship, did you sort of figure out that this one might not be the one for you? It's always the same. Everyone always knows in the beginning.
Yes, they do. They just don't listen.
Yep, I did. I had plenty of intuitions. I married him anyways. What to do? It's just whatever. So all this mental activity made her very much the planner, but he would stick into her the things to plan because look, she's not strategic. She wasn't there.
Yeah, no, she's all open.
All right. So she was just wide open to all the forces, which made her an incredible knower. So basically, he would go to her, honey, what are the details on all of this? Because she's got the gate of details in a definition, 1762. This channel of creating opinions from a logical platform by which she can explain her own self in the now and contribute that in a way that's helpful to the tribe and impactful as a stranger of consequence and impactful as a mutative being. She was a mutative being. I won't say she was the backbone of their outfit, but part of her was the backbone of their outfit. She may not have seen it that way because he was in control of things. But in his mind, he knew. He had a totally open head, Najna. When she came along, suddenly he's all filled in. And he's all connected. Those two electromagnetics, 5 electromagnetics they have. That's substantial. That's some juice. And they fill in each other's centers.
Yes.
It's all very
lots of magnetic attraction.
Lots of crazy ass magnetic attraction. The only thing I'm surprised at really is that she didn't get knocked up.
I don't think that happened.
They didn't have kids.
Mm-mm.
No, because if they did, Clyde would have done something to change his ways, I would imagine. She would have made him maybe or not. I don't know how it all worked out, but they didn't have kids. That's stunning. That's stunning that they avoided pregnancy all that time. Because they're not designed to basically avoid pregnancy. They're designed to have babies. They got tribal definition. They fill in all each other's centers. The fertility is all over the place in the sacral. The receptiveness to fertility is all over the place in that solar plex center. There's an ego there to make a family. They had everything needed to make a lot less make families of 6 and 10. Trust me,
Yes.
So the only thing that would have stopped them is being 9 and 0. They didn't need a family. They filled each other in. They made all 9 centers defined. So my final analysis of Bonnie and Clyde is these two were Romeo and Juliet without being held apart, but where the kings couldn't hold them apart. And every time they came apart, they came back together again because they had this incredible, crazy magnetic connection that just felt so dang sexy. It did. It just felt so dang sexy to those two when they were together. It was fire and heat and all that good stuff, and then plenty of practicalness afterwards, and a couple of bank robberies to pay for it all. A match made in heaven.
I was just going to say they showed that through their criminal journey.
Yeah.
So
how long did they have at it? Like 10 years? Where did they make it?
I would say about that. There were some periods where he was in jail, and he was in jail for years at a time. He had so many crimes that when he was in jail, they tried to charge him with other ones, but he would get it released because they didn't have enough evidence, all sorts of things. So
And she would have been right there helping. She would have been right there helping him, I would have thought.
Oh yeah, she did help. She smuggled a gun into jail. So he could break out.
Did he break out?
Yeah, he broke out, but then he got caught. She helped bust out his cousin or something like that. I mean, yeah, she started to become a part of it. So
yeah. All of that would have seemed really wildly attractive to her too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, obviously. And they were together like glue. So great job.
Yep. That was Bonnie and Clyde, starstruck lovers, man. You couldn't pull those guys apart. It was it's very sweet on one end, except for the families of the people that he killed people in, but what to do.
Yeah, I know. But it's good that we do like a forensic and check their charts out and see what's really going on.
Had you been with the cops back then, them knowing some of this stuff, they would have put a tail on her more often to find out more stuff about Clyde. Or, just knowing certain things that they couldn't help. They would have baited things out of him knowing this.
I think they started to do that towards the end. She was being watched, so.
Yeah, however, at the very beginning, had they known their charts, they could have done that right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Type thing. But yeah, those charts, they fit together. And they still lived a life of crime and got shot to death. So just the lesson of the story is just because your charts appear to fit together on paper, you still got to experience it yourself and make sure it's the right thing for you. Or else you'll get gunned down in the machine gun of life. So please, be yourself, follow your strategy and authority, and enter into relationships as yourself.
Yes, and guys, if you have any questions on your relationships, make sure that you book a session with Dan, because he does a phenomenal couple readings. And if you're not in a relationship and you want to know what your human design is, please make sure to go to the website, www.humandesignadvantage.com, and you guys book your sessions.
Book your session, guys. Don't miss out. We'll get you on the road, man. You'll get to have it all. It's great.
Yeah, thank you. And we hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and don't know what we're doing Sunday, but we will see you guys on Sunday.
Will do.
All right. Bye now.
Bye now.
Get ready for the most out-of-this-world weekend Roswell has ever seen. UFO Expo 2023, March 10th through the 12th at the Roswell Convention Center. 3 days packed with 40 different events, including 10 different film screens, producers, celebrity personalities, and renowned speakers, and all just a few blocks from the UFO Museum and Research Center. The 3-day pass includes VIP parties, mixer tents, speakers, live music, film festival, cosplay events, and more. Get tickets and more info at ufoxpo.com. UFO Expo 2023, March 10th through the 12th at the Roswell